good morning. Welcome to everyone. To those in the room, those who are live with us this morning, and also to those who will be viewing later, we welcome you. I'm grateful to be your speaker this morning on sort of a surprise basis. I ask that we all keep Reverend Rafe in our thoughts and prayers. He asked me to pinch hit because he's been experiencing sort of a strong dose of some virus, flu-like in nature. So let us know that with ease and grace, he's bouncing back and all is great. All is well. So as is typical in our tradition, we start the year with the first 4 chapters of the Science of Mind text. And it's a primer because all faith traditions have a sense of what we refer to as the divine, as that deity, and some idea of what it does and what it believes. Ours is a little bit different. So the first 3 chapters that Reverend Rafe has presented in January are the thing itself, the thing itself. In other words, what is that divine entity, that power, presence, life that we call God? The way it works. And you'll notice the word it all the time. That doesn't sound very sacred or very laudatory, right? But as Reverend Rafe said the first week, that not Reverend Rafe, but Ernest Holmes himself used the word it from the standpoint that God is the source of all creation. Another way of saying it is God is all that really matters. It's that presence and power and wisdom and knowledge and love and healing grace that created all that is. From the invisible into form as we experience it, having a human experience. And not only did it create us, it also created everything that exists in this realm in this domain. The sand, the stars, the water, all forms of life, and the earth that we live upon. And what it does. So to recap, it is invisible, all-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving, changeless, and everywhere present. It's as if we swim in this field of presence. And it is activating every time we choose to recognize that and call upon it. So today we're going to talk about one final piece, and this is the crucial piece, because we've been learning about this, and it's abstract, and it's not physical. And the key piece is, if we're going to believe in this, how do we use it? And he said, we can use it for definite purpose. Now, that's sort of a different phrase we don't hear in many other traditions. Use me, right? How can we use it? And especially if it's if it's invisible and it's abstract, it's not tangible. It's sort of like gravity, right? We know it exists. We know it has an impact on us if we ignore it. But we can't feel it, smell it, hold it, right? And yet it has power that we work within. So I want to step back and talk about, remember from page 1 of the text in the chapter 1, Ernest Holmes talks about scientific principle. And this is what he had to say because people, since our tradition started was science. But we always come back to it. So why is that the name? Well, Ernest Holmes said this. He said in the hard sciences and even in, like physics and biology and chemistry and so forth, there are scientific principles that work the same way for everyone, every time. There are no favorites. There's no special dispensation. It's not like one person can defy gravity and nobody else can, right? And so he says in the spiritual realm, it is the same thing. Spiritual principles work the same way all the time for everyone without special dispensation. And so that's where the word science comes from. And so we look at principles, spiritual principle, as those guides, those aspects of creation that we can rely on to always work the same way. And regardless of who we are, what we look like, what our income is, where we live, it works the same for everyone. It's a level playing field. Now, going back to our chapter for this week, how to use it. He starts by saying, we can only know as much as we can demonstrate. And so this is a tradition in which, and I think this is true of most things in life, if we're going to become a master craftsman, for example, we have a mastery of that medium to the extent that we've practiced it and used it and learned to operate with the tools and the medium and so forth, right? A musician has mastery to the extent that they've developed their voice or their instrument. And so Holmes says to us, we can only know this and use this to the extent that we practice it and demonstrate with it. So we are called upon to practice. And that's what we're going to talk about and dig into today. I'm going to start by asking us to flip the script, and then we're going to get into some aspects that make more, that are clear in terms of how to use it. How oftentimes have we heard, or maybe we've said it ourselves? Well, I believe it when I see it. Right? It's saying, all right, prove yourself to me, and then I'll believe you. But Holmes is saying, no, we've got to flip the script. Here's what we need to be saying. And it helps us to, if we flip it, and every time we want to say, well, I'll believe it when I see it, let's say this instead. I will see it when I believe it. Yes, I will see it when I believe it. It's putting faith first. It's putting trust in that belief, because that trust and that belief is trust in the law that is always operating. Always. Never stops. And it's an aspect of God. Remember, there are no favorites here. The law isn't saying, okay, I'm going to answer your prayer today, but not yours. No. The power resides within us. Are we believing it and trusting it? Do we know how to use it so we can use it effectively for definite purpose? And so, one of the things that does is it puts us in that place of power. And what is the automatic result of that? Although we may really not want to do this, if we like blaming something or someone, it takes away the blame. Now, it can be insidious to say, well, I created it, because there are some things we would say, did I really create this? Did I really want this? And we know that Michael Beckwith brought a turn on this, because he came up through our tradition. And the thought is this, sometimes things happen or show up that we can't explain. It's not helpful to try and explain. It's not helpful to take on self-blame that may not be there. But instead, it may be asking us to grow and expand by how we respond to that unexpected. And so, we can be in a castigating place, or we can say, okay, I'm trusting there is a gift here. I'm trusting there's something that expands me and grows me. And that is a form of, we could say, divine discomfort. But whenever we're in discomfort and we choose the resilience path, what we're saying is, I want to expand. I want to grow. I want to become something more than what I am. And so we can choose, as a way of using it, to embrace that here is an invitation to be more than I was a moment ago. Here is an invitation for me to show up in a moment where I'm triggered to instead be grace and let something else come through that guides me in how I respond. Does that make sense? Okay. So again, I want to go back to, Holmes says we can use this for definite purpose. In fact, in his radio hour, he would start by saying, there's a power for good in the universe that we can use, and we can use it for definite purpose. That was his opening. And so how do we do that? Does it feel like a big responsibility? Yeah, we're not perfect. We're not. We goof up. We forget sometimes. And that's an invitation to be compassionate and with grace on ourselves and forgiveness, right? And then choose to do it better the next time. So, with going along with this idea of definite purpose is the reminder that God can only do for us what it can do through us. Now, that's not a common understanding. So again, it puts us in the spotlight. What am I allowing? What am I saying yes to? Whatever I don't believe is like closing a door. It's stopping something from coming in. Oh, I don't believe that. Oh, that's not possible. Oh, that's never going to happen. That door has been shut. We have shut that door. And we may not even recognize it, that we're doing that. But what we're in essence saying is, I'm not going to allow that. I'm not welcoming that. Maybe we're not ready to change that far yet. Again, let's look at ourselves with some grace and compassion. But if you're wanting $10 million and you don't even have a bank account, how can the money come in, right? Where's it going? Right? Allowing. So often we pray for healing or we pray for something to change. But if we're not allowing it, you can go to the most powerful guru, you can go to the greatest practitioner, and they will do a session with you, they will work with you, they will pray with you, they will know a higher truth that you are not able to allow yourself to know. But if you're not allowing that to be received and work through you, then you're wanting something that cannot happen because that door is closed. So we're asked, there are many factors involved on the stage set of how to use it. That we use it for definite purpose, and we need to be receptive to receiving it, allowing it. Readiness. It's about readiness. I want this. Oh, I so want this. Am I ready for it? Is another question, right? What is law? I know we talk a lot about law, and my brief answer to that is it's an aspect of God. Now, go with me for a moment here. In the living organism, most living organisms on Earth, mostly the more advanced ones, whether it's humans or any being that walks about, swims about, and so forth. There's something that is needed that is mating. We mate. And what is mating there? It is the conception of something desirable with the ability to transform that into creation, right? Law is that when we look at our charts in the textbook, that big circle that represents all of creation, all of God, all of us, the top part is cause, is idea, is thought. It is that which is the inception of something. The middle part is what we refer to as law, and it is the divine feminine aspect of God that is that aspect, again, invisible, right? We can't see it. We just know that it works. And it's part of our demonstrating. It is that which converts that request, that inception, that thought into some type of form or experience. So every time we're thinking, every time we're feeling, we are invoking the law because we are co-creators. Everything that is true of God is true of us at some level. And we are part of that infinite oneness that is all that is. And so that's why, we've heard this so many times because we sing it often. Our thoughts are prayers. We are always thinking. Right? Be mindful what we're thinking. And that's what it's referring back to, is that whether we realize it or not, and we talk about this in the sense of creating in default. So when Holmes encourages us to use this power for definite purpose, he also encourages us to use it consciously, because conscious thought is where we direct it. That's how we give direction to what we're creating. Right? Otherwise, if we're on default on autopilot, something else is driving the car. And we've even found out in the physical realm how difficult it is to create autopilot. But we have our own version of it. It's all those old stories. It's all those old wounds. It's all those old trained responses that we have, right? And so if we're not conscious of what we're declaring, what we're wanting, what we are wanting to create, then autopilot is running the show. And it's our own autopilot. And in part, it is also all that is mass consciousness. Now, when we think of the world, do we want that running our lives? We can choose differently to use this for purpose and consciously direct it. That's part of our power. And that's part of using this for definite purpose. Now, has anybody heard the term Rule 52? Okay. As you take classes, you may come into this. It's called Rule 52, and amazingly, it shows up on page 52 in the text. That's why it's called Rule 52. Okay? And what it says is the law is always responding. It's always saying yes. It's like this big, radar or catcher's net out there, right? And we have a thought and it goes, yep, got it. Okay. Yep, oh, got it. There you go, right? Well, here's the thing. The law works, it says yes. It doesn't check in with you. It doesn't say, now, wait a minute, do you want a second think, want to think about this a second time before I do this, right? Are you really serious about this? It doesn't do that. No, it just says, yes, okay. Your wish is my command, right? That sort of thing. We hear that in literature and folk tales and so forth. Rule 52 says, it's saying yes. So if you are clear in what you're wanting to demonstrate, it goes with you. And you believe in it, that helps. Because Rule 52 says if you don't believe it, like, oh yeah, the law, it doesn't really work. It hasn't worked for me. Rule 52 says, yeah, I don't work for you. Or in essence, it's saying, if you doubt me, okay, I'll work for you by giving you an effect that makes you continue to doubt me. So it's always working. It's always catching it. It's always working. But our perspective about the efficacy of the law, about it works, and I can trust it, I can lean into it, I can stand on it, right? I believe in it. Makes a difference. If we doubt it, then we're going to get, who knows what result. So I have a story for you. And if you've been in classes with me, you may remember this. How many have eaten in a restaurant? Everybody, right? At some point in our lives. And what do we do when we go to a restaurant? We go to a restaurant and we are seated and we're presented with a menu, right? So we've decided, I'm either wanting to share with someone or I'm hungry. Whatever the reason is, we go into a restaurant, we sit down with the intent to eat. We're presented with a menu, and what do? We make a choice. Now, with our thoughts, with every situation in our life, we are always making a choice. Even when we think we don't have a choice, the choice of, I don't have a choice here is a choice, right? Sort of like Rule 52. In some ways, right? So we look at the menu, and a waiter or waitress comes over and says, what would you like to order? Let me think. In our form of prayer, we don't call it an order, but we do call it an affirmation, a declaration, right? I would like to order this. Okay, they write it down, and they walk off. That person walks off to the kitchen. And our understanding from all the times that we've eaten in a restaurant is that what we have chosen off the menu, and sometimes they'll even agree to customize it, tailor it for us, if we ask. They walk off to the kitchen and give it to the cooks, and it comes back and it's served up to us, right? Do we ever go into a restaurant, place an order, watch the waiter or waitress walk off, and then go, I don't know what's going to happen here. I think I better get up and go into the kitchen and cook it myself. Right? We don't do that because we trust the process. Yes. The same applies with the law. Every thought, every feeling has been transmitted, and it's been caught in, that big catcher's mitt said, yep, got it, and is working on it. But do we trust that? Now, one of the places we really get sort of off kilter, off balance, is that we don't have control how soon it's going to manifest. And it may manifest in ways that we hadn't anticipated. But that doesn't mean it's not happening, right? And sometimes, a lot of times, in my prayers, I'll say the Master Creator. And I know in my heart, in my whole being, that I'm accepting that this could be an adventure. The adventure of how this manifests is part of the intrigue, knowing that I'm not limiting it. It does not have to show up this way. It's almost a cliche at this point. The person who prayed to be saved during a flood and they're on the rooftop. And God, please, send somebody to help me. And a boat came and they turned it down. And somebody else came, and then a helicopter, whatever, there were multiple things that happened. And then the person drowned and said to God, why didn't you save me? Well, I sent you this and this and this, and you ignored them all. Because they weren't what that person had in their mind as this is how I get saved. So the manifestation was there, right? The demonstration was there. Law responded. But when we're not in alignment with how it appears, then we might believe that it didn't work. So let's be open to that master creator doing a masterful job of how it's coming to us and showing up. And just allow it to happen and, sort of get ourselves out of the way. What do our practitioners do? Our practitioners use it for definite purpose on behalf of who we are praying for and what we are praying for. And the key for coming to a minister or a practitioner is that, honestly, there are times, and it even happens to us, we're in a dark night of the soul, and we can't pray anymore. We can't see clearly. We can't believe that there's something better that's still to come. When we're in those experiences, are we doing our best at praying? No. So that's when we say, well, let me go to someone who can know a higher truth and really be in that consciousness and help this to come about, knowing that I have to allow it as well. I have to trust and allow it as well. Another point is practice, right? We're talking about, let's run them down again. Practice, being receptive, trust and belief. And another key point is consistency. If I pray once and then let it go and then I get distracted with other things, well, that didn't work, or it hasn't shown up yet, right? And we get indignant. And we're depositing in the can't be trusted account rather than, wow, that really worked. Consistency. And Ernest Holmes uses the word will. He talks about will. And we typically jump to willpower, and then we think we need to muscle into it. We have to push it, and we have to be hard with it and force it and so forth. He says, no, it's not about exertion. It's not about physical power. He refers to will as consistency, that I'm continually showing up with this clear in my mind of what I'm choosing to demonstrate. And I stay with it without doubt, without fear. I just stay with it, leaning into trust in the law, leaning into what we believe. I stay with it no matter what it looks like around me out in the world. No matter, what I just got from the IRS, those sort of things, right? We stay clear, aligned, and hold the path. Not with push, not with anger, not with fear, but simply aligned, knowing that the law is working. I can't see it, but I trust it. I know it's at work, right? So a few things more, and we'll wrap up here. In terms of using it, what is ours to do? Let's remember that change starts within. And so we have the concept of activism in the world, which is trying to go out there and make change. But the real change starts within. And when I was leading the Sacred Activism group, that's really where the work was in every meeting. It was never about getting a group together and talking politics. It was never about that. But it was about what's going on in my life that I'm triggered about in this moment. What does that tell me that's going on within me? What is it within me that needs to be healed or changed? And that's where we do the work. That's where the activism really starts. Because as soon as we do that, we are showing up differently. And because we're showing up differently, that is a subtle power that is translating out. It's building a neural network in mass consciousness, that there is another possibility, another choice that can be made. And as we demonstrate that, it reinforces that. And so we let that new I am ripple out. We don't have to force it out. We don't have to put a press release announcement about what I did, right? Just let that be our new home base, and it is what we emanate out in the world and how we show up differently. Also in the word action, there's action and there's reaction. When we're reacting to something that's going on in the world, and there is a lot going on out in the world right now, in so many ways, and an election cycle on top of it. When we go to take action in the world about conditions that are out there, if we're focusing on that condition, what is the condition? It is the artifact, the remnant, the effect of some prior choice, some prior demonstration. It's the old news. But when we go out there and tackle it at that level of condition, we are not in our power, and we're focusing in the past. A lot of times what happens is it translates into, in terms of like identity politics or this group versus this group, the tribalism, whatever, it translates into, I'm right, you're wrong. And the other person's saying, no, I'm right, you're wrong. And it never gets beyond that when we're working at that level. And so when we take it up, our movement's vision and mission in the world is a world that works for everyone. That's inviting us to be using it for definite purpose that is a greater good for all, that we are demonstrating something that is important to us personally, but let's do it with the tone, the vibration of the insight, the intention, the affirmation, that we're choosing it and let it be for the highest and greatest good of all, right? Because consciousness is really where the power is, aligned with the divine. Let's surrender our ego need to be right. Let's surrender our ego need to prevail over. Let that go. Let's have a clear vision. Let's always work with and rather than but, right? In our framing of this within our own consciousness. All of these things help to raise up the prayer, what we're sending out to law to be working on, right? We speak our prayers as affirmations, that middle section, that cream filling in the Oreo cookie of prayer, right? We speak them as affirmations that are present tense as if they already exist, because we know that when we get out of the physical domain of time and space, everything exists right now, and we are all one. So we are simply calling forward what is already in existence. And we're calling it forward from the standpoint that I am ready now to experience this, to receive this, to be a beacon of this. And that's why we use affirmations. We trust the law, right? Because it's going to act, it's acting on our behalf, whichever way. If we're in doubt or really clear, let's err on the side of trust. And that's not error. Let's win. Let's succeed. Let's Let's demonstrate based on trust. Let's release control. We don't need to get up in the restaurant and go into the kitchen and cook our own meal. When we let the waitress walk away and let the cook come and then it comes and serves, that's releasing, that's trusting, right? Let's surrender as we do in prayer. We release this, trusting with grateful hearts, knowing it is already done, and allowing in that state of readiness. And I want to say this in closing. I always have this vision in my mind that we are all potentially a link from the past to the now, to the present, to the future, or we can be a broken link. Let's choose to be the link that keeps that chain of life, of evolution, of transformation intact. And let's be that power for good in the world. So let's take this into prayer. Speaking on behalf of all of us, I know, we know, there is a power for good in the universe that we can use for definite purpose. We know that this power for good is that power which is all-powerful. It is all that exists. It is that one life, one presence that is absolute, infinite, eternal, everywhere present, everywhere acting. And one of the ways that it is acting is as that aspect we call law, divine law, not do's and don'ts law, but that law which is always responding to every thought, every intention, every feeling, and saying, yes, yes, my beloved, yes, of course, here. And we also know that this power and presence of the Creator that created all that exists, that is absolute, is that of unconditional love. Love that is forever present and pouring forth without end, without question, without measure. Because creation is a divine creation, a creation based in love. And we know that God is forever giving of itself to its creation. That includes us. And so we breathe that in and we say, yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. Without limit to the goodness that we can receive, without limits to the healing that is ours. And knowing also that we are God in creation, that in every moment we are co-creating, whether we choose it consciously or not, we are co-creating. And so we choose to rise up our consciousness, to open our heart, to be that presence of light, compassion in the world. And we know that we are never alone and never separate. We are inseparably one with that power and presence that we call God, that is our partner always. And that partner who does the heavy lifting. And so it is part of our life, of our existence, of us being God in expression, that we can say, God, let's create this together. Let's do a great job on this. Let's create a greater world by starting by creating a greater me. I am ready. And I'm allowing this to be. And I know it is done with all ease and grace. I know it is done at a pace and tempo and way that I can move with and assimilate and grow into. Let's do this. And I thank you for doing the heavy lifting. I surrender to that. I release into that. I am grateful for your willingness to do that. And as your emanation, I am an emissary into this world, transforming what having a human experience can be. I do this with all love and in service to being alive here. I am filled with the grace and gratitude of what this means. And I thank you, partner. I let this be now, in full trust and full belief. And together we say, Ashe, Aho,
Aho.
Amen,
Amen.
Shalom,
Shalom.
and so it is.
So it is.